able to get inside and get a look at an underground fallout shelter that was built in 1960.
Something was making strange noises under his driveway. For months, he ignored it, until the ground gave way, revealing a hidden entrance to something historic. What he uncovered would stop anyone in their tracks. But his story is just one of 18 unbelievable discoveries that have recently surfaced, from crumbling bunkers and buried bombs to sunken ships and frozen warbirds. Some of them were found deep under the sea. They were never meant to be found. But history has a way of clawing its way back to the surface. So what exactly was under that driveway? Let's just say you'll want to see it for yourself. Vintage car in USS Yorktown Wreck. During a 2025 underwater exploration of the sunken aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, researchers made a surprising and historically rich discovery. A vintage 1941 Ford Super Deluxe Woody station wagon resting quietly on the aft hangar deck. The Yorktown, a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier lost during the pivotal Battle of Midway in 1942, had remained over 80 years beneath the Pacific Ocean. As part of NOAA's Beyond the Blue mission, a remotely operated vehicle scanned the wreck and revealed the car, partially buried and coated in layers of silt. Remarkably, several features remained intact, including its chrome bumpers, fenders, split windshield, and rear spare tire. Faintly visible on the front plate were the words Ship Service Navy, suggesting the vehicle may have been used by high-ranking officers like Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher or Captain Elliot Buckmaster during port visits. More surprising than the car was the finding of a giant hand-painted mural inside one of the elevator shafts of the ship. The mural measured 42 by 12 feet and beautifully portrayed the world voyages of the Yorktown, symbolizing the pride, spirit, and brotherhood of the sailors who once served on her. Those personal things, preserved deep below the ocean, offered one a haunting yet beautiful glimpse into the daily lives of those on board. The car and the mural transformed the wreck from a historical artifact into a time capsule, an intimate reminder that even in the midst of war, there were moments of normalcy, creativity, and memory. If this preserved car gave you chills, keep watching. What's coming next will truly break your heart. USS Juno. In 2018, more than 7 decades after it was lost, the wreck of the USS Juno was discovered nearly 4 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of the Solomon Islands. The American light cruiser had disappeared on November 13, 1942, after being struck by a Japanese torpedo during the naval battle of Guadalcanal. The ship sank in just 30 seconds, taking over 600 crew members with it, including the 5 Sullivan brothers, George, Francis, Joseph, Madison, and Albert, who had enlisted together and served side by side aboard the vessel. Their loss was one of the most devastating blows to American morale during World War II and led to a major shift in U.S. military policy regarding family members serving together in combat. A research team sponsored by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen has discovered the fatality using sonar scans and a remotely operated submersible. The discovery site at a depth of 13,000 feet finds the wreckage of the Juno largely intact, preserved in the cold, dark waters of the South Pacific. It has fulfilled a long-standing desire of many to bring an end to one of the most tragic stories of the war, and once again evoke national memory of the sacrifice the Sullivan brothers made. Their legacy has helped spur a U.S. Navy policy that prevents siblings from being assigned to active service together, and Waterloo, Iowa, their hometown, endures as a symbol of resilience and grief in America. The discovery of the Juno stands as a testament to the extraordinary personal toll of war and the continuing need to honor those who serve. Australian bomber off Antikythera, Greece. In 2024, divers from the Greek technical diving team Aegean Tech made a historic underwater discovery off the coast of Antikythera, Greece, the wreck of a World War II-era Royal Australian Air Force Baltimore bomber. Resting at a depth of 200 feet beneath the sea, the aircraft had been missing since December 3, 1943, when it was shot down during a fierce mid-air battle with German fighters over the Aegean Sea. The plane, identified as Baltimore FW-282, carried a multinational Allied crew representing Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. Only one man, Flight Lieutenant William Alroy Hugh Horsley, survived. Knocked unconscious in the crash, he awoke underwater, swam to shore, and was later captured, spending the rest of the war as a prisoner. His three comrades, Navigator Leslie Norman Rowe, Pilot Officer Colin William Walker, and Warrant Officer John Gartside, were listed as missing in action. In 2025, the History and Heritage Unit of Australia finally confirmed the identity of the wreck, thus granting long overdue acknowledgement and closure to the families of the dead crew. The valor and sacrifices of the airmen were recognized by senior military leaders of the three nations involved in the search, describing the finding as a lasting memorial of Allied unity during one of history's darkest chapters. The site now has the potential for preservation as a memorial. With all its technical success, the recovery of FW-282 is a very human story of courage and survival, 80 years lost from our view, and in time, remembrance. Giant swastika under German sports field. In 2017, a routine construction job in Hamburg's Billstedt district came to a shocking halt when workers uncovered a massive 13 by 13-foot concrete swastika buried just 16 inches below the surface of a local sports field. While excavating the area, the claw of an excavator struck something unexpectedly solid. As the dust cleared and workers investigated further, the crew realized they had unearthed a forgotten foundation of a long-destroyed Nazi monument. The swastika had been hidden beneath the Heinkling sports field for decades, just beneath the very spot where children played soccer, its existence unknown to the current community. However, members of the Billstedt Horn Sports Club recalled hearing stories that a Nazi structure once stood there, although they never imagined its concrete base still lay intact beneath their feet. The accidental find was immediately reported to the department responsible for cultural heritage in Hamburg. However, the structure posed a difficulty in that it had become too heavy to be lifted by machinery. Authorities opted instead to break it up with jackhammers and remove it piece by piece. More than just a delay to the construction schedule, the find also uncovered what might be considered a ghost from the past, a piece of evidence from World War II hiding in plain sight. For decades, it lay dormant underneath a symbol of leisure and community, only to re-emerge with just one swing of a shovel, an impertinent reminder of a dark chapter from Germany's history. Cold War bunker. When Carol Holler-Zwick and her family purchased a modest brick house in Neenah, Wisconsin, they were casually told a Cold War-era bunker might lie somewhere beneath the backyard. For a decade, that rumor remained just a quirky footnote, until 2010, when, while trimming back thick brush, the family spotted two rusted steel doors buried under ivy. After cutting away vines, unlocking an old chain, and lifting the heavy bulkhead, they were met with a breath of damp air and the sight of a ladder descending 8 feet into the earth. What they found below was astonishing. A 10-foot-long concrete fallout shelter nearly submerged in 5 feet of dark water, hiding dozens of olive-green army crates stenciled with ominous warnings about ammunition. Fearing the worst, the family contacted the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which descended into the shelter first. Inside, instead of finding life ordnance, agents stumbled upon a beautiful time capsule from 1960. The crates contained cans of Hawaiian punch, raisins, Hershey's syrup, dry paper towels wrapped in wax, gauze, flashlights, batteries, even a garden hose and funnel meant for draining water. Constructed and stocked as far back as 2 years before the Cuban Missile Crisis, the shelter was intended to keep Dr. Frank Panchka's family underground for 2 weeks in case of nuclear attack. Hauntingly sealed and untouched for 50 years, the shelter itself stood as a spine-chilling testament to the anxieties of the Cold War, articulated not from textbooks but in the dusty script of survival ration labels and the musty air of an abandoned shelter. Pilot's uniform. In a quiet home in East Staffordshire, England, an ordinary house clearance turned into a remarkable World War II discovery. While sorting through the belongings of an elderly man who had recently passed away, his family uncovered a dusty brown paper parcel tucked beneath a bed. Tied with a worn string and stuffed with crumpled newspapers dated from 1951, the parcel hadn't been touched in over 70 years. Inside was a perfectly preserved Royal Air Force uniform from World War II, a dark blue jacket with polished brass buttons, matching trousers, and a sleeve patch bearing a 3-blade propeller, marking the rank of senior aircraftman. The uniform had been meticulously folded, as if waiting for its owner to return. The family believed that perhaps the uniform belonged to the deceased or one of his brothers, all of whom served during the war. Why it was hidden so carefully and never mentioned is an enigma, a silent attempt at holding on to the past, or perhaps a solitary way of keeping wartime memories alive. The auctioneer went on to comment that unwrapping it is like a gift from another era. It was not just a rare piece of military history, but also another emotional insight into one man's private legacy of service and remembrance. World War II. Bomb in Flaxton. In the peaceful village of Flaxton, North Yorkshire, a quiet renovation project took a dramatic turn when builders uncovered a suspected World War II bomb buried beneath the floorboards of a small outbuilding on Main Street. What initially seemed like an old metal pipe quickly revealed itself to be something far more dangerous, a long, cold, dust-covered object partially embedded in the ground. Once the crew realized what they were dealing with, emergency services were immediately called. Within minutes, police arrived and established a 330-foot safety cordon around the site, shutting down roads and evacuating nearby residents. The village community hall was quickly opened to serve as a temporary shelter as tension spread through the otherwise quiet streets. Before the bomb disposal unit from the Army arrived on the scene to examine and secure the explosive device, no one knew for sure how volatile or unstable that many decades-old bomb could be. It had remained undisturbed for several decades underneath the soil, a few inches from where people walked and children played, an invisible remnant of a war long past. The discovery served as a stark reminder that the legacy of World War II still lingers beneath the surface of present-day life. Authorities acted responsibly and coordinated to resolve the matter safely, but the unearthed artifact left indelible scars on the psyche of the village of Flaxton. V2 rocket crater. In 2017, researchers studying LiDAR, light detection and ranging, scans of Hoji's forest in Greater Poland spotted an unusual round depression in the earth, an anomaly that raised suspicions of either a meteorite impact or an old quarry. Intrigued by its nearly perfect circular shape, a team of archaeologists arrived on site to investigate further. As they excavated the crater, approximately 65 feet in diameter and over 6 feet deep, they began uncovering scorched metal fragments buried in the soil. Among the debris were unmistakable components of a German V2 rocket, graphite rudders, duralumin panels, shattered fuel lines, and even parts of the turbopump and engine casing. Some pieces were twisted and burned, others lay deeply embedded, preserved by decades of forest growth and undisturbed earth. The team used metal detectors and GPR to ascertain that further rocket parts had indeed remained below the crater floor. The remote evidence provided a picture of the site being affected by a test missile launched from a distance of over 65 miles from the German Hohenlinde training site in Wierzysk. A good thing was that the missile probably carried negligible or no explosive substances, which accounts for the minor blast radius and the recovery of the rear portion only. The test site, therefore, furnished an unusual window into the technical achievements and experimental hazards of the Nazi German wartime rocket program instead of annihilation. Today, the crater, concealed for over 70 years, silently yet powerfully reminds us of how close the future of warfare came to affecting the past. Milk cans by the lake. While vacationing with his family near a quiet lakeside in northern Poland, 14-year-old Patrick Lesmen stumbled upon a remarkable piece of buried history. Half buried in the earth, he discovered 2 large metal milk cans and wisely reported the find to local scientists. What lay inside had been hidden for over 70 years, a collection of personal heirlooms belonging to one of Prussia's most prominent noble families, the von Finkensteins. Preserved within the cans were family photo albums, jewelry, a pocket watch, hunting gear, a Wehrmacht officer's uniform, banknotes, and even letters written during the Soviet occupation. Some letters were from Soviet officers granting safe passage. Others documented the seizure of the estate's livestock and property. Historians agree on the fact that it was Hildegard von Finkenstein, who was married to Count Hans Joachim von Finkenstein, who buried the cans in a desperate personal plea to save her family's name before running away from the threatened approach of the Red Army during the year 1945. Her husband had been taken by the Soviet troops, had already died in a prison camp, and she tried to save whatever she could before leaving for Germany some months later. The find was especially poignant for the couple's daughter, who had returned 81 years later to Poland to collect the finds. Each object, carefully wrapped and stored, must have said everything a family faced before displacement and the personal cost of war. Historical artifacts would not only be presented, but also provide a glimpse into genuinely human lives caught in the tide of World War II. This lakeside discovery is unforgettable, but the next one might just raise your heart rate. Weapons in the attic. During a quiet home renovation in the small village of Konado, Poland, a resident lifted a set of old wooden attic floorboards and uncovered a chilling time capsule from World War II. Hidden beneath the boards, wrapped in aged cloth, were 3 fully intact wartime weapons: a Mauser Model 98 rifle, a Beretta 38 submachine gun from 1939, and a Sturmgewehr 44, StCG 44, one of the first true assault rifles ever used in combat. Alongside the firearms lay 3 magazines, a belt of ammunition, and over 400 live rounds, all remarkably preserved despite the passage of decades. What began as a simple home project quickly turned into a scene of historical significance, prompting the man to alert local authorities. The weapons were secured by police before being handed over to experts for potential examination and further research in a museum setting. While the identity of the arsenal's holder remains unidentified, historians opine that it probably belonged to a member of the Polish resistance during the war. Many families in the area along the borders of Poland and Germany were tied to partisan activities in their homes, harboring not only weapons but also people and sensitive documents against the onslaught of German forces. Each firearm tells a story of its own. The Mauser 98, that stalwart of German infantry, the Beretta 38, which makes its reputation in close combat, and the StG 44, the first of its kind, born in 1943 to rally Germany's failing war efforts. In togetherness, they serve as a haunting witness to the region's wartime memories and the secret struggles done within ordinary homes. Air raid shelter under driveway. Simon Marks had always dismissed the strange cracking sounds beneath his driveway in Luton, England, as nothing more than old pipes or settling concrete. But one afternoon, while parking his black Vauxhall, one of the front wheels suddenly dropped into the ground. Initially fearing a sinkhole or a collapsed garden feature, Simon began removing the broken paving stones to investigate. What he uncovered was far from ordinary, a rusted metal object buried in the soil, soon identified as part of a Nazi-era artifact. As he cleared more debris, he found the entrance to something far bigger, a long-forgotten World War II air raid shelter hidden just beneath his driveway. Simon peered down into the opening with a selfie stick and saw 2 tiny rooms jam-packed with mud, about 10 feet below ground. The first room was about 7 by 4 feet, and the second room was about 10 by 5 feet. The shelter was almost entirely choked with mud, broken glass bottles, and yellowed newspapers. While the concrete structure itself was in remarkably good condition, a rusty swastika embedded in the debris added to the dreadful historical context. It had turned a mere domestic mystery into a significant relic of wartime. offering a glimpse into how British families used to prepare for German bombing raids. This shelter, long buried and almost forgotten, gives us an acute memory of the home front struggles endured during the darkest days of World War II. German warship Karlsruhe. After vanishing beneath the waves for nearly 80 years, the wreck of the German cruiser Karlsruhe was finally discovered in 2017 off the coast of Norway. The ship had played a key role in Nazi Germany's 1940 invasion of Norway, helping to attack the port of Kristiansand. However, while retreating from the area, the Karlsruhe was struck by a torpedo fired from a British submarine. Severely damaged and in danger of capture, the German crew made the decision to scuttle the ship. For decades, its final resting place remained a mystery, until engineers from Norway's power grid company Statnett, while inspecting an undersea cable, detected a massive 570-foot-long wreck lying 1,500 feet below the surface and just 50 feet from the cable itself. The wreck was initially discovered in 2017, but it wasn't until 2020 that a remotely operated vehicle obtained clear images confirming its identity. The images showed some defining features of the Karlsruhe, including the hull, 9 large cannons, and clear Nazi markings. The ship lies upright and fairly intact, a rare occurrence for one of its size and age. The Norwegian Coastal Administration now monitors the site, which is considered a precious historical artifact and a grave in respect. The Karlsruhe's discovery adds a new, vibrant chapter to the history of German naval activities during World War II and the earlier turmoil of the Norwegian campaign. Higgins boat in Lake Meade. In July 2022, extreme drought conditions in the American Southwest caused water levels in Lake Meade to drop dramatically, revealing a hidden relic from World War II. Resting on its side near the shoreline was a Higgins boat, an iconic D-Day landing craft that once stormed the beaches of Normandy in 1944. Designed by Andrew Higgins, these shallow draft boats were built mainly from plywood and played a critical role in amphibious assaults, capable of carrying a 36-man platoon or small vehicles like jeeps. The boat found at Lake Meade had not been lost in battle, but had lived multiple lives after the war. Sold as military surplus, it was used for river surveys on the Colorado River before being acquired by a local marina and deliberately sunk to serve as a breakwater structure. Once nearly 185 feet deep, the Higgins boat had long been a noted dive site, though most had long forgotten it. With the lowering of the lake, the craft re-emerged, the old frame of the Higgins boat contrasting eerily with the barren, dry desert all around it. Time and water had not been kind, but its unmistakable silhouette and age-old function were still recognizable. Its reappearance from the depths served as not only a stark reminder of the effects of climate change on water levels, but also an unexpected homage to the thousands of servicemen who relied on these vessels during one of the most important battles in history. A rare illustration of how wartime history appears in some of the most unlikely of places is the boat's gaping entrance into Lake Meade. Revenue cutter Bear. In 2021, maritime archaeologists and historians confirmed the discovery of the long-lost U.S. revenue cutter Bear, located approximately 90 nautical miles south of Cape Sable, Nova Scotia. The ship had mysteriously vanished decades earlier while being towed to Philadelphia, ending one of the most extraordinary service records in U.S. maritime history. Originally built in 1874 as a seal hunting vessel, the Bear was later purchased by the U.S. government in the 1880s and went on to perform daring Arctic rescues, deliver medicine and supplies during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, and patrol the ice-filled waters of Alaska through both World War I and World War II. Her storied career came to a quiet end in '63, but the exact location of her final resting place remained unknown for nearly 60 years. The search for the Bear was conducted almost on a 2-decade period and contained within it a healthy mixture of sonar technology, historical inquiry, and coordinated efforts from NOAA, USCG, and academic partners. The wreck was discovered in a survey in 2018. and it was only 2 years later that experts could fully authenticate the wreck. With the ship lying at the seafloor, an extremely well-preserved hulk testified to its great endurance and role in American maritime operations. The rediscovery of Bear solved a mystery that had long been unresolved and, at the same time, celebrated a ship that had long been a symbol of service, endurance, and humanitarian mission across nearly a century of U.S. history. Bomb found in Venice Canal. On the morning of February 2, 2020, workers near Venice's industrial port made a startling discovery: a 485-pound World War II-era bomb buried beneath the ground. Though the location was far from the city's historic center, the threat was taken extremely seriously. Italian authorities immediately evacuated around 3,500 people from the area, and all forms of local transportation, including roads, boats, and even air traffic, were halted. The bomb was likely dropped by American forces in 1944 during a strategic bombing campaign targeting key infrastructure in northern Italy. For decades, the massive explosive lay dormant just feet below one of Europe's busiest and most iconic regions. Operation for safe diffusion and removal of the bomb had been in progress for several hours, but trained supervision of bomb squads and efficient working of emergency services, along with military security personnel, was obtained to conduct that operation. At around 8:30 a.m., the airspace of Venice was officially shut down as teams began to do their jobs. Fortunately, there were no incidents that resulted from the mission, and the bomb was effectively transported to a secure area for controlled detonation. The discovery served as a reminder of the World War II legacy echoing through modern Europe, not only in museums and memorials, but in things buried under everyday streets and waterways. P38 Plane in Greenland. In July 2022, searchers in Greenland made a remarkable discovery beneath 300 feet of solid ice: a long-lost World War II-era P-38 Lightning fighter plane, part of the famous Lost Squadron. On July 15, 1942, 8 American aircraft, including 6 P-38s and 2 B-17 bombers, were forced to make emergency landings on Greenland's glaciers during a sudden blizzard while en route to Europe. Though all crew members were rescued days later, the planes were left behind to be swallowed by the shifting ice over time. Decades later, thanks to advanced drone-mounted ground-penetrating radar, one of these aircraft, nicknamed Echo, was located deep beneath the surface. The Arctic Hot Point Solutions crew confirmed the finding with a high-pressure hot water probe that melted a narrow shaft through the ice. The probe was returned coated in 5606 hydraulic fluid, World War II slang for a delightful red liquid that used to be found in the engines of aircraft during that time, and they knew they had hit metal from one of the buried planes. Known as the P-38, piloted by Robert Wilson, this discovery came after having recovered another lost squadron plane, Glacier Girl, back in 1992, Alfred Rosenberg's long-lost diary. Alfred Rosenberg, one of Adolf Hitler's closest advisors and a chief architect of Nazi ideology, kept a personal diary between 1934 and 1944, an extraordinary document that vanished after World War II. For decades, historians believed it was lost forever, until a breakthrough investigation led to its recovery in 2013. Spearheaded by U.S. Homeland Security investigations and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware, the diary was found hidden in the United States, far from where it had originally been seized. It turned out that Dr. Robert Kempner, a U.S. government lawyer and prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials, had taken the diary from Germany after the war and brought it back to his Pennsylvania home, where it remained hidden for decades. It gives an insight into the workings of the Nazi regime, as its pages carry Rosenberg's private thoughts, records of his meetings with Hitler, major events such as the invasion of the Soviet Union, the Nazi racial policies, and the orchestrated mass slaying. As more than just a historical footnote, the diary gives insight into how the most important decisions of the Third Reich were conceived and executed. In 2012, an art security expert working with the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum played a pivotal role in leading authorities to the artifact. You've seen shipwrecks and secret bunkers, but nothing compares to the secrets buried in this forgotten diary. Battleship Mousashi. In 2015, after decades lost to the depths of history, the wreck of the Japanese battleship Musashi was discovered in the Sibuyan Sea by a team led by billionaire explorer and Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. The Musashi was one of the largest and most powerful warships ever built, an 862-foot-long floating fortress that weighed over 73,000 tons and carried the largest naval guns ever mounted, 18-inch behemoths capable of devastating enemy fleets. Sister ship to the infamous Yamato, the Musashi was a key asset of the Imperial Japanese Navy. During the fierce Battle of Leyte Gulf on October 24, 1944, American forces launched a relentless attack, striking the ship with dozens of bombs and torpedoes before she finally sank, taking more than 1,000 of her 2,199 crew members with her. The wreck was found more than 300 feet below the ocean's surface using state-of-the-art sonar technology, historical naval records from 4 nations, and a remotely operated submersible launched from his 413-foot research yacht, MY Octopus. The haunting images taken by the submersible of the ship's wreckage showed twisted gun turrets, gargantuan anchors, and machinery covered with rust, carved in Japanese characters. The Musashi's discovery closed one book on maritime history, while quietly honoring those who lost their lives in the laying of one of the strongest warships ever forged. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these incredible discoveries, give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment to tell us which one surprised you the most, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that bring the past back to life. Ready for another jaw-dropping find? Click on the next video on your screen. You won't believe what they uncovered next.